Welcome to Behind the Investigation on Atlanta News First Investigates, where we take viewers and listeners behind the scenes of our investigations. Joining me now is Chief Investigative Reporter Brendan Keefe. How you doing, Brendan?
Hi, Andy.
So both of us, have covered criminal justice for quite some time, but I'm so glad that you tackled this specific subject because you often don't see a lot of this type of coverage. Tell us a little bit more about this story and why you decided to cover it.
We're calling it blind justice. It's about invisible disabilities, particularly deafness, blindness, also visual impairment, and hard of hearing. When police officers encounter someone who's hard of hearing or deaf, they may bark out verbal orders. How many cases have we seen where the justification for use of force was they failed to comply with the orders to stop running or turn around or drop a weapon or whatever? If they can't hear that command, then they can't follow the order. And if they're not facing the officer, they're not even aware an order has been given. There's also an issue with people who are blind or visually impaired because they may, once again, it may be an invisible disability where the officers simply don't understand that they cannot see or have trouble seeing. So let's take a look at blind justice. We'll talk about it on the other side.
Did time speed up or did I slow down?
Jim Hodges is a disabled Navy veteran.
I don't recognize this world, I don't remember this pain. I go out of my way to not appear as I have a disability. So I had to walk up to jury duty in the dark, so I took my navigational aid with me.
Hi there.
Hey.
Hodges was walking back from jury duty when he was stopped by deputies in Lake City, Florida.
What is your suspicion?
It looks like you're carrying a gun in your back pocket. I'm stopping to make sure you're carrying it properly. You don't have
you
to...
ensured that it's not a firearm?
No, you keep turning so I can't see it. You don't have to be a to me.
Well, you're being one to me.
Reaching for that cane was a risk.
Checked out where the position of her hands and all. It wasn't nowhere near a firearm, so I just reached around and pulled it out and put it at eye level so she can get a good look at it.
No, sir, I'm doing my job.
Am I detained?
Yeah, you are. What's your name and date of birth?
It does not matter.
Yes, sir, it does.
Do you have a crime?
Would you like me
Call
to
your
put you in?
supervisor,
He's right
please.
here.
Once they see that cane, the stop should be over.
It should be over with. I should be allowed to go on my way.
But that's not how it went.
No.
And her suspicion was that you were armed, okay? And she's asking for your ID.
Well, now she has verified that I am not armed.
Okay.
So there is no
You got
problem.
your ID or not?
Some people would say, why not just give them the ID?
Let's let them have every little right until they run out of them and they want our big ones.
It was important for you to stand up for your rights, even if that meant you were going to go to jail.
That meant that I was an American who knew his rights. I took the same oath that these two took.
There you go.
Thank you.
Sir, are you legally blind?
Yes, I am.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Hodges. Was that hard?
It's gonna be. I want your name and your badge number. You know, I put him in jail for resisting.
Okay.
So how long were you in jail?
26 hours.
Most law enforcement stops start with sound
Driver of the white Tesla, come on out with your hands up.
and verbal commands.
Put your hands behind your back! Hands behind your back! Put your hands behind your back!
Deafness is another invisible disability.
Put your hands behind your back! Hands behind your back! Do it now! Okay. Put your hands behind your back. Put your hands behind your back, sir.
Police in Texas kept issuing verbal commands after they knew the man was deaf.
Get on your stomach! Turn around!
If a driver can't hear repeated verbal commands, an officer could perceive that as refusing to comply. A deaf driver reaching for their registration can't hear the officer ordering them to stop, and police have used force against them. In one case, a man was beaten reaching for a card that read, "Driver is deaf."
If I try to sign, they back away from me, thinking maybe I have a gun or some kind of weapon or a spray or knife or anything along those lines.
Sit back in your car. Sit back in your car.
Run up on us like that?
It has happened across the nation.
Who do you think you are? Stop.
was trying to talk. I was trying to say something. You didn't know I was deaf.
After you are released from the hospital, you're going to jail.
My first reaction as a total blind person, much less a total blind female, is if somebody grabs me, I'm going to immediately turn away and resist.
You don't see the uniform because
No,
you
correct.
can't see anything.
Correct.
Kim Chichester helps train police for the Alabama Institute for the Deaf and Blind.
Training is key to being safe in every scenario.
People usually don't actually know that I'm blind.
Alabama is one of the few states that actually mandates training for invisible disabilities. Do you support that kind of training?
I support it 100%. Police officers may ask questions targeted towards an individual, and sometimes we don't know who they're talking to.
Oregon now includes deaf and blind instructors at the police academy, while Texas alerts officers on traffic stops that a driver might have trouble communicating.
The new law gives a person challenged with communication the option to disclose their disability when registering their vehicle through the DMV.
You want to pull this out of my back pocket?
Sure.
As for Jim Hodges, he got his cane back along with his freedom, reaching a settlement with the Columbia County Sheriff's Office.
Both deputies will be required to undergo remedial training pertaining to civil rights.
The sheriff himself lost election last year.
He is no longer Sheriff Mark Hunter. He's just Mark Hunter citizen.
Do you think your incident had something to do with him losing the next election?
I think the whole world's attention on Lake City, Florida, Columbia County is what did that. Oh, did I slow down?
Back on that porch in North Georgia sits what deputies couldn't see, and a man who never lost his vision for the freedom he once defended.
It's almost over now.
The former Columbia County Sheriff and the deputies involved declined comment through their attorneys.
Brendan, we were talking yesterday after we watched the piece as a team. Is there anything that you wish you could have included in this story and you just simply didn't have time or you didn't get that interview?
That's a great question, Andy, because, a lot of times we talk about what's in the story, but the hardest decision is what to leave out, either for time or for clarity. I only showed a few examples. There are so many more examples, frustratingly, around the country. I mentioned one where the man was reaching for a card that said driver is deaf. He was beaten so badly that both of his eyes were bloodshot. He had huge welts on his face, and he simply could not hear the officers. There are two cases out of Phoenix that we didn't show. One was a man who was visually impaired, doesn't even have one of his eyes. The other eye can barely see. He was walking into a Quick Trip bathroom, and he actually bumped up against a police officer at the urinal who was wearing a dark uniform. He didn't know the officer was there. The officer perceived it as he was being jumped in the bathroom, and he physically restrained the man and used force to arrest him. There was another case in Phoenix where a man with cerebral palsy and deafness was tased and beaten by police. That case is under investigation and is subject to litigation right now. We didn't show any of those because there were simply so many. We just showed a few examples to try to get to what is the solution.
Are there national statistics on this sort of stuff? I know that the disability community has tried to advocate for more training for law enforcement officers, but do we have data on this, or even data of how often individuals with disabilities are victims of crimes themselves?
Yeah, nobody's tracking this. Just like, as you know, police-involved shootings aren't tracked except by third parties. The uniform crime reporting statistics from the FBI, those are just tracking crimes, and those aren't tracking, say, what the suspects were in terms of any possible disabilities they might have had. What I can tell you is that the number of people in the community who are deaf or blind is relatively small, which is why some police officers may never encounter someone with total blindness or someone who is deaf. They will very likely encounter someone who's visually impaired and very likely encounter someone who has hard of hearing. Or is hard of hearing, because as we age, I'm certainly one of those people. I wear glasses now when I didn't have to. I have trouble hearing. I'll be 57 this year. But as you get to 75 and up, more than half the population has hearing and visual impairment, or hard of hearing or visually impaired. And so that's where you start to see more interactions with police, but they're going to assume that when they see someone who is quote unquote elderly or a senior. They're not going to assume it when they see someone who's in their 20s, 30s, or 40s.
Is this story an illustration that law enforcement just needs better training when it comes to people with ailments, disability sort of stuff? Or is this an illustration of, hey, if you have disability, here's what you need to do if you have an encounter with law enforcement, or is it both?
Well, I think we ask our police officers to do a lot these days. We ask police to be social workers. We ask them to deal with people who have mental illness. We ask for them to resolve civil disputes, essentially, on the street. And they do all this while risking their lives. So I think it has to be put in that perspective. We're not taking a side one way or the other, but you can tell in all of these cases how the police, when we played the extended clips, were mortified when they discovered that someone who wasn't listening to their commands was actually deaf and couldn't hear them. What there does need to be, though, is always more training. I mean, training is always the answer. But when you look at what Alabama's doing, Alabama's training is limited to 1 hour every 2 years. Wow. And at least it's mandated. Georgia doesn't have any mandate at all. And so if there was training, particularly what Oregon has done, where they bring deaf and blind instructors into the police academy, and then also one other thing the Alabama Institute for Deaf and Blind are doing, they are actually using special glasses that make it difficult to see, blurred vision, or completely blacked out glasses, earmuffs, as part of the training, so the officers can experience in a role-playing scenario where they're the citizen and other police officers are barking orders at them, how that's perceived by someone who has limited perception of sight or vision or hearing.
Brendan, I'm so glad you did this story, and I hope you stay on top of this issue. I know the disability community often feels unheard, and I think this is a great story that makes them feel heard of how just connecting with law enforcement can sometimes impact them if law enforcement is unaware of a disability or don't know how to properly respond to someone with a disability. So thank you. You can watch more of Brendan's investigations on AtlantaNewsFirst.com or anywhere where you get your podcasts.